let's start with you because you're already starting it. The question is, do you believe that Arizona schools are receiving adequate state and local funding? And explain why or why not. And you have already begun that discussion, so please continue. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Yes, I do believe that schools are getting adequate funding. Again, I think what we have to do is look at how the money is being spent. Again, I'm going to go right back to what I just brought up. The fact that we have 227 school districts, 15 counties. Imagine if we could get rid of 100 of those school districts, 100 boards that are asking for more funds in the spending, and get the money into the classroom, because that's where it's got to be. I think that the state has to do some things. I believe that one of the things that we need to do, for instance, is to take some of the facilities out of the general funds and give it back to the schools. I believe that we need to equate and even out the school funding between private schools, public schools, or charter schools. I believe the charter schools want to do just as good a job as the public schools. But I am a believer in public schools, but I love the fact that private schools make us compete more.
Thank you very much. Scott, same question?
I kind of disagree with the fact that I don't think that they are getting adequate funding. I don't think at this point in time that that's the main problem, which we can go over a little bit later. I think one of the problems here in Arizona is we don't focus on education. We don't take the time to actually prioritize education as the most important thing. If you look at all the problems in our state, unemployment, our infrastructure, pretty much everything is all tied to education. We don't get big businesses to come into Arizona because we have, we're the worst in school funding for children. In our curriculum, and our students are not passing, we do not have a good workforce. We have to change that if we want to bring business in. So education kind of ties all that together. Now, one of the quotes that I ran across today when I was doing some research about funding was from Grant Woods, former Arizona Attorney General and he was at the Arizona Business and Education Coalition Conference this year. And what he said was, someone always in the top 10 on every list relating to education. Why is that? That's because they prioritize education. There is a good cause and effect there. They don't have the legislature that cuts. We don't value education, or we wouldn't continue to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
And no, I don't think that they're receiving adequate funding. I mean, study after study shows that strong per pupil spending equals strong student success. And Arizona is at the bottom for all. So I think that's a good indication that we're not doing it right. I mean, education is absolutely crucial to the growing of the middle class and the boosting of our economy. So in order to do that, in order to have a robust middle class and a healthy economy, we need more funding.
Thank you, Adam.
I think if you look at the largest line item in our state budget, it's education. And I believe what we have to be looking at is where are we allocating those funds and how are they being used. Now, the state is not going to take back control or take control from our local school boards the day in and day out financial decisions that each school district makes. I do believe that the funding that we are providing is sufficient. I think how we're spending it is where we need to be looking. I think that we do have some top-heavy school districts. I think there are public school districts that are doing a stellar job, and we should be looking at those and using them as role models for other public schools that are struggling. And I think one of the things that we have to avoid doing is taking all of our public schools and lumping them into one big group and saying X% aren't succeeding, so all are not succeeding. We do have some phenomenal public school systems, and we need to look at those.
Thank you, Adam. Senator Farnsworth.
Yes, I believe our schools are currently receiving adequate levels of funding. According to the most recent Superintendent of Public Instruction's annual report, FY 2014-2015, Arizona school districts received a total of $9,897,557,487. This is a total of federal, state, and local dollars. Arizona's average daily membership was 1,082,675 students. This means that on a statewide basis, each average daily membership for each student was funded $9,141.76. For the first time in nearly a decade, Arizona, whoa, I'm out of time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Representative Townsend.
Thank you, and I think that it depends, I don't think we have a yes and no answer to this. This is a very complex issue, and I don't think you can just say, yes, we do, or no, we don't. I think that spending is important, but the outcomes are more important. We want to look at the product, and if spending alone was the measure of success, then the states that spent the most would have absolute success, but we see that places like Chicago and Detroit, who spend a lot of money, don't have that kind of success. So I don't think it's black and white. I think that Arizona has shown that we can produce good schools. We have 3 of the top 10 schools in the state, in the country. We are the only state that has that many in the top 10, so that's pretty good bragging rights. But then we also have some other problems around the state. So we have other things we need to look at. I think we have a source of money we're not tapping into. I'm going to talk about it more tonight because I only have about 10 seconds. But we're not even looking at the exchange of lands, the federal land that's being held that could be exchanged for state land and
Thank
revenue.
you, Representative Townsend. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Robin. The state of Arizona has seen the most drastic cuts to traditional public education that this state has ever seen, or for other states, as a matter of fact, as well. We are 49th in per pupil spending, and that is not an admirable place to be among the 50 states. Because of those drastic cuts, the cost of state government is being shifted down to the local districts, so that education is one of, and because education is one of those costs, the local taxpayer then has to decide if they can afford to spend a bit more out of their paycheck in order to cover education. This past year, I worked with the Save Our Schools team, and I see many familiar faces of our team in the audience, and we spent June, July, and August, and we were not successful in passing our override.